Well, I'm very happy to be here with Mayor Colosio.
Hello.
And to talk a little bit about our cities. Athens and Monterrey are very densely built cities and very densely populated, and they face similar problems, which is that they are they have a lot of heat, and the city absorbs the heat, and we really have to find solutions both in Athens and Monterrey to deal with it and to cool the city down and to help the people survive.
Yes.
So I know that, well, we all know that the best kind of solutions are nature-based solutions,
Yes.
bringing radically nature into the city, into the public space, and taking...
Equally radical as the urban sprawl that decimated those green areas.
Exactly. So we have to bring nature in, as you said, and we've talked about this, radically back into the city, and that's the best way to cool our city. So you have a big plan that has to do with several green corridors
Yes.
that will traverse the city, and this is actually, we know the best way to cool cities is to create these corridors and link existing green spaces. But the question is, that's a hard thing to do because often you have to go against the car. So how are you going to deal with that, and what are your plans, and how are you thinking about this fight, this confrontation?
We had a panel where they asked us a similar question. How do you engage people? How do you get people galvanized and ready for responding to this call to action? And I responded, shock them into action. I mean, we are just coming out of a series of natural disasters or natural inefficiencies.
Yeah.
We had major wildfires, extreme heat temperatures, record-breaking, all-time record-breaking extreme heat temperatures. And, well, one of the most horrible droughts in our contemporary history in the last 40 years. And for months at a time, there were people without access to clean water and sanitation in their homes, even my home. And this is a very clear example of how climate change, but specifically extreme heat, is working against us. So it's not as easily to negate this fact, because it's fact, and people still have this very freshly imbued in their system. So that is...
So it's a good time to act.
The timing is perfect to act now and to get people engaged in all these solutions that we want to do. I mean, we're not going to displace the automobile completely. I mean, that's still years in the making, in the future. But we really need to give people other options for mobility, sustainable mobility, to be able to get to work or to their school or to their entertainment centers via foot or bicycle. And we are engaging this through a green corridor system that we are implementing throughout all the city. But we also elevated this to a metropolitan project. We got several mayors engaged in this project, and we're turning this into a metropolitan system.
That's great. That's how it should be.
And this goes hand in hand with a urban park system that we're creating, where all the major parks are going to be natural protected reservoirs. And we're going to be managed by an independent entity, separate from the city's central administration, in order to ensure coverage and good maintenance over time, to transcend administrations.
This is so important. We did exactly the same, to create an independent agency that can run the parks and the green spaces, because we keep forgetting that, and mayors often forget, that it's not the creation of the park, it's the maintenance of the park that is the most, what needs the investment. And to look like in the future, how is this park going to survive and be vibrant and actually work to cool the city and give us the ecosystemic services? So bringing in, and funding is not always available, right, in cities. So you have to bring other types of capital sometimes.
I want to ask you about funding in a little bit, because what you're saying is true. I mean, sadly, not many politicians, and that's why they're politicians and not statespeople, never consider anything on the long term. They're always considering their next election and the political ramifications or consequences for adopting the changes that need to be made. And that is a very risky situation to put a city in. And that is a very unfair way to treat the people that you're supposed to serve. City servants, we're all in the business of taking care of people.
That's right.
And when you fail to hold that responsibility, well, you are failing at your job. So city leaders need to understand throughout the world is that these implications of tying the future of your city to your political agenda is not only immoral, it's also absurd. Because you are creating an ecosystem for disaster. And we are seeing it all across the world, how many cities in the world, cities that you wouldn't expect to have these problems, are having railways shutting down because the tracks caught fire.
That's right.
Or
buckled or melted
or the runway of an airport in London just melting down.
Yeah.
Wildfires in Athens, for example, or in the Sierra of Santiago in Nuevo León. We have all these clear manifest examples that there are happening all over the world, and still there are so many people that either don't know about this or would rather not know, and that is even more dangerous.
Would rather
not know. They are choosing to be blind to this reality, even though they know it.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest problem for cities is the lack of resources to actually implement these solutions and to sustain these solutions on the long run.
Yeah.
So what I was meaning to ask, you're not only the chief heat officer of Athens, you are the chief heat officer of the world. I think one of the biggest challenges for cities is allocating the resources, and not just economical, but also technical resources needed to implement these tailor-made solutions according to your city geographic context and demographic context, and of course, the city design, albeit poorly designed in many cases. But in order to get these resources, not many cities have the support from their national governments.
That's true.
So,
or even the capacity to actually apply for them and have the right type of procurement
processes. How can we help cities, especially subnational governments, but specifically cities, allocate these resources in order to act, intelligently over time, transcending administrations?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, it's interesting that you put the question in those terms, because a lot of mayors have like a 4-year term or a 3 or a 5-year term, right? Mm-hmm. And most of the money that cities have are public funds, public money. And these public money, we put a lot of checks and balances on them, so it takes a really long time to actually release them, to do the type of projects that you want to do. So a mayor, you design something, you want to implement it. By the time it starts being implemented, it might be after your term. So for mayors, it's really sometimes frustrating, because all the work that you do, often somebody else ends up kind of profiting from it.
If only, because many politicians, just, when they get into office, they trash everything their predecessors do. That's also a very absurd way of...
Silly.
Yeah,
that's very
silly.
But the whole issue of timing is really important, and I think you put it in the right context, because attracting different types of funding, which we will need to do to really transform the cities the way you and I want to transform them, to be able to make them livable in relation to heat. You need to figure out different types of resources from private sector, from, insurance, from different types of public funds, humanitarians, et cetera, and bring private sector strongly into it. And these have different time moments that they can feed into the projects that cities are doing. So this is one of the real win-win situations, right? If we manage to create the possibility to bring other types of funding in, it also allows us to work on things faster. Yes. So, for example, create the technical designs like really fast, which if we do it internally just as the city, we will take much longer time. Yes. Get the money for the technical designs, and then start kind of dealing with the low-hanging fruit, get quick things happening, and then also make that part of a longer strategy that you have many stakeholders invested in it, so that the next mayor that comes cannot say, okay, we're going to erase this and start something new. But so this is like a really important issue.
Yes, it is. And what we're trying to do is just that. I mean, I know the implications of adopting many of these solutions in a political career. I don't care for it. I mean, if my political career is over after this term because people are not happy with the nature-based solutions that we desperately need in the city, well, so be it.
That's leadership, man. Thank you for that.
No.
Thank you, Mayor.
Well,
this has been really lovely.
I'm loving this too. Thank you very much for everything, and I'm just so grateful to make your acquaintance and also enter into this beautiful partnership.
Take care.